He ducked back down into his seat. The mourners turned their gaze back to Harry. Outside, a heavy truck pulled down a side street. The deep engine throb filled the meeting house. Harry shifted and blinked. The room tensed, but he went still again. A woman to Harry's left popped up like a meerkat and raised a silver flute into view.
"I'd like to play a song for you, Beth. I tried to compose something original, but I was too sad to think, so I'm going to play a Beatles song, because the Beatles cover every single emotion there could possibly be. I'm going to play Hello, Goodbye."
She lifted the flute to her lips and gave it a nervous off-key toot.
Hold on. I have to adjust something."
She fiddled with the tuning slide, gave things a twist, pressed the flute to her lips again. She closed her eyes and played the first note, this time perfectly. The simple pop melody hit the mourners with the emotional wallop of a Bach cello suite. Loud sobs detonated around the room. But not a sound from the front pew, where Harry sat. Someone in the back of the room stood and began to speak in a steady, elderly voice.
"Well, my name is Bill Belson, and I live over on Guernsey Road, and I want to speak a moment about Beth and my Jack Russell Terrier, Bud. Every morning, I tie Bud to the cherry tree in my front yard so he can watch what's going on, and Beth, on her way to the train, would always stop to give him a head scratch or a belly rub. When she'd step into the yard, she'd say, 'Hello, Bud,' and when she'd leave, she'd say, 'Goodbye, Bud.'"
Bill Belson paused.
"I'd hear Beth's voice from an open window, or maybe I'd be out back raking leaves, and it brought me pleasure, this little thing between the two of them, this little hello, goodbye."
Bill's deep sigh filled the room.
"I'm sure going to miss that moment, because that's why we're here on this planet, you know, to speak to dogs, to be alive in the world. That's what Beth was, alive in the world."
For the first time since Stan and Wolf had led him into the room, Harry moved. He slowly turned to look at this man, Bill Belson, but Bill had taken his seat. Harry's eyes cut to a teenager rising to his feet. Jason Luder. Nice kid, lived next door, mowed their lawn when they went on vacation.
"Yeah, well," Jason began, "kinda following up on what Mr. Belson said, and the lady with the flute. We just read Slaughterhouse-Five in class, and there's like this phrase that Billy Pilgrim uses, farewell, hello, because he's like unstuck in time. So maybe in a way, Mrs. Crane's still kind of here, okay? In a way, she's just unstuck in time."
Jason sat down. And Harry stood up. The assembly held its collective breath. Harry was going to speak. He said 2 words, but in a voice so quiet no one could make them out. He looked at the floor, then at the ceiling, and said them again. "Wait here." 200 people exchanged furtive, puzzled looks. Harry stepped past Wolf. Wolf gripped Harry's coat sleeve. Harry shook free, stood for a teetering moment, then took off down the center of the aisle. He banged open the meeting house doors, ran down the stone steps, and out onto the lawn, accelerating toward some unreachable escape. Wolf, large as a locomotive and huffing steam in the cold air, caught him from behind. They crashed to the frozen ground. Crushed beneath his brother, Harry felt the relief of obliteration. But he heard himself groan. There would be no escape, and his left eye opened. He blinked and stared at his hand, pinned inches in front of his face. The fingers slowly uncurled and revealed, crumpled and sweaty after 5 days of clutching it in his fist, a lot